Welcome. I'm so excited that you choose to spend 2 hours of your morning to be here, listening to some amazing, delightful folks on the topic of deep rest or resistance. I am Jin Ong, part of the Root, Reclaiming Our Own Time team here at Nexus Community Partners. And I'm just so excited for this time that we're going to spend here today. So, with that, let's get started. Go to the next slide, Susie. All right. So the team at Nexus for Reclaiming Our Own Time is myself and Susie Morales. We are your mighty team that's doing this delightful programming. So you see Susie waving over there. It's us with a pretty background, with this beautiful image that Tori Hong, illustrated for us to really makes the point that rest looks like so many different ways, right? Reclaiming that in our body, our minds, our hearts, our souls, doing it as a community so that we reclaim it for our ancestors, ourselves, together for future generations. And that's how we choose to lean into this work. And with that, next slide, Susie. All right. So, for our time here today, we are going to talk about what that deep rest looks for in this time of resistance. We have brought together a panel of some of our dearest collaborators. It's hard to choose because we do this work in an ecosystem manner. But what we are really excited to really bring to you are some just deep practitioners of rest across the gamut of our work that we'll talk more when we get to that point later. But I hope gives you all a good sense of like when we really talk about what it means to reclaim that rest for ourselves, right? Like, because so much of our time right now is to the grind, whatever that looks like in your respective lives. Like, how do we then kind of ease back into it? Because that reclaiming needs to be true to who we are, needs to be gentle, and needs to really honor a lot of the unpacking and the unraveling. And in doing that, how could we hold each other gently in that process as well? So I am really excited. I know Susie and myself, as we were chatting with our fellow panelists who are also our dear collaborators in so many other root related works. We have been geeking out in the preparation of this time. So super excited to get into that. Next slide. So a little bit about Root before we get to that. This is the vision that we have for our programming because we want an anchor in the creation of our work. So we imagine that in this future, when we're reclaiming our time, that we can see ourselves as leaders, Black, Indigenous, people of color. In our well-rested future, we reclaim our own narrative. We celebrate who we are and our rest practices. Our rest is deserved, intergenerational, well-resourced, and for all of us. We rest for our ancestors, past, present, and future. We are connected to ourselves, our people, our rest practices, our youth, and our elders. Our dreams are expansive and vibrant. Our loved ones rest together in that fullness, and we feel alive and joyful. So, when we do our work and programming, we really aspire towards this vision to really hold space with you all. And we hope that it's in this spirit that we get to create this space with you all today. Next slide. And just a little bit about our programming. Hopefully, this is not the first time that we meet you, but if this is, welcome. And hopefully, that there's more opportunities for us to intersect. We really see our work as multidimensional. So, obviously, some of you may have heard of our work through our community events that we have put out there, such as Reimagine Rest. Or if you're a healer, maybe you have attended our Heal the Healers, event earlier this year or throughout the end of last year. or if you are one of the sabbatical recipients, or you have applied for that, so you know about our sabbatical program, whatever it is that is your, intersecting points with root. Um, this reflects the work that we are doing. We also have conversations out there with, the philanthropy community to really see how else we can try and impact the way in which that we think about rest. We also talk to other folks who are doing similar work like ours, because we don't believe in doing this work in isolation. And also, as we do this, how else can we share what we're learning so that we all together collectively change the narrative around reclaiming rest? Because truly, rest is all of our birthright. It shouldn't be something that we need to aspire to or like grind before we get it, right? Like all of us deserve that rest. So this really reflects kind of our framework towards the work that we are doing. So um what's our next slide, Susie? Okay, before we get there, a couple of things that I would like to say. So, because this event is part of the Nexus 20th anniversary celebration, we just want to take a moment to thank the sponsors for this particular event. So, this is the third of a series of events. So hopefully you're also signed up for our next one. That is the Open Road Fun. That's later in the year, super exciting. I know I'm personally excited for that one as well. And these events are brought to you by our sponsors. So we have to thank St. Paul, Minnesota Community Foundation for this, as well as Old National Bank and Bremer Bank and Thrivent. They are the reasons why we're able to be here, and they have supported many years of our events that they have made possible. And as we have our time here today, if you feel inspired by our conversation here, that we hope that you'll be able to make a personal contribution to Nexus by clicking on the link in chat for a donation. And we'll also include a link in the follow-up email as well, along with a recording for the event. Another logistical thing that I will mention now, and this is another exciting thing that some of you have probably read about in the socials or in the promotional for this event. So this is the time where I would encourage you all to go to the name change part in Zoom if you have one of those quirky names like iPhone 25 or whatever, because we have an event giveaway today. Thanks to our sponsors, Intercontinental Hotel St. Paul Riverfront and Ricardo Levins Morales Studio, we have two prizes to give away as part of a live name drawing. So if you are present here at the end of the event, we will put your names into that raffle, and you have a chance to either get that Intercontinental Hotel stay, so it's a voucher for a day stay, or you can get something from Ricardo Levins Morales' studio, which are really gorgeous artworks. So I would say, take a moment to change that name if you have one of those quirky names on Zoom right now. So, and I'm seeing people are doing that. So thank you for paying attention. All right. Along with that, you'll also receive Nexus 20th anniversary glass, a joyful and abundant Nexus print, along with that as well. So, all right. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Susie for a little moment of meditation.
So I'll give you a minute to make those name changes. Like Sukjin mentioned, we do believe that rest is part of our liberation, right? And so we wanted to offer a little example of what a rest practice could look like. If we were in person, we might have someone lead some type of activity or workshop with you all. Given that we're on Zoom, it might look a little different. So I invite you all, if you would like, to find yourself in a comfortable position. That could be seated, if you need to stand, or go to, I don't know, your bed or couch or somewhere comfy, or if you're in the office, I don't know, the floor, anywhere. And I'm going to play this meditation by Trisha Hersey. So feel free to take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, turn your camera off if you'd like. And then we will ground ourselves and do this together. So I will actually stop sharing and then reshare. Okay, and I hope this works, but let me know if you all cannot hear the sound.
Welcome to the dream space. This is a transmission,
I won't
a
be, I'm sorry.
download, a daydream. Breathe in. Breathe in your imagination. Stay here. Stay and rest. Stay in the dream space. Our collective rest will save us. Welcome to the dream space. Another world is possible. You are enough. Our dreams are enough. This is imagination work. Imagine you have everything you need. Imagine a world with justice. Imagine a world where capitalism doesn't exist. Poverty is no longer created. Welcome to your dream space. A portal opens when we rest, when we nap, when we stop, when we sleep, when we have silence. Stay here. You can daydream. You can daydream. Welcome to the dream space. Daydream, you have everything you need. You have everything you need. You have everything you need. This is a transmission. Daydream. Daydream. Stay here. This is imagination work. This is dream work. Welcome to your dream space. You can just be. You can just be.
And when you're feeling called, start to open your eyes, move your fingers. And then I invite us to all take a few deep breaths together. Inhale, exhale. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale and exhale. One more. Inhale and exhale. Thank you. So, like I said, or like Trisha Hersey says in the meditation, this is your dream space. Rest is needed. Naps and sleep and rest are portals. So, if anything, if you walk away from this Zoom call, I hope that at least you take away this message that rest is important. Rest is part of our healing. And yeah, so I think someone has dropped the link to that meditation in the chat in case you wanted to return to it. But I'm very excited to continue talking about rest. And I think we have, let me share my screen again. Rapa, who I'm going to invite to speak next and touch a little bit more on this topic. So I'm going to introduce Rapa to you all. Rapa serves as our founder and CEO of Nexus Community Partners, a community building intermediary that works at the intersection of community building and community development to achieve equitable community growth. Rapa has 35 plus years of experience in community-based leadership, leadership guidance, creative institution building, wealth building strategies, organizational leadership, and systems change work. He is recognized locally and nationally as an innovative and visionary leader and heads up Nexus's work with regional and national partners. So I'm super excited to have you all hear a little bit from Rapa. He has been someone who has always been supportive of this rest movement. And so without further ado, Rapa, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Susie. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Again, thanks. May the ancestors guide my words, my thoughts, my deeds, and my direction. As Susie shared, I'm Rapa Makai, and I serve as the founder, president, and CEO of Nexus Community Partners, and just want to share that I am excited and honored to be in space with you all this morning as we talk about something that is very dear to me, and not just in this work, but in how I live this life. For 20 years, Nexus has been committed to building engaged and powerful communities of color, so that every person could flourish in a joyful and abundant life. And we've, over time, organized our work within and across 4 ships. We call it our ships: authorship, leadership, ownership, and stewardship. And we've been intentional, very intentional about this, because we've always known more now and clearer now than in the past that who plans for, who governs, who owns, and who stewards resources has always been at the heart of this country's ethos, dead center, and has always served to sustain deep inequities. And so we've tuned into those areas because we know in order to change the landscape, we have to be tapping at them, pushing at them all the time. And 20 years ago, we did something very simple. And sometimes it's the simple things that are most profound and drive the most profound change. We turn to community as our source of strength and to reimagine what power looks like when it's rooted in truth and relationships. And ever since that time, we've held as our highest sense of accountability, our sense of responsibility to communities, and the ideas and the brilliance that has been gifted to us by community has informed Nexus mission, our strategies, and all the innovative programming that we've done. Many of you have been around or connected to some of Nexus work in one way or another, whether it's Root that we'll talk about, you'll hear about a little bit more today, the Open Road Fund that if you haven't heard about, they're next up in kind of lifting up our work over the 20 years. I know Suk Jin spoke to that. But I also encourage you to take a look at the North Star Black Cooperative Fellowship, the Boards and Commissions Leadership Institute, and the Shared Ownership Center. They all reflect the deep values that Nexus has carried over the course of the years and all tie back to those ships. Here's what I would say in this morning, in this moment. We find ourselves operating, given all the work that we've done, we find ourselves in this moment operating with a call for even higher levels of purpose and intentionality. And we've embraced the fact that it's not enough to just stand straight, that you really have to lean forward. It is necessary to, in that leaning forward, to disrupt barriers, reimagine possibilities, and build more just futures. What we also know, though, is that the closer we get to the world that we want to see and experience, the greater the slope of injustice that we'll encounter. It just happens that way. When you know you're making significant, impactful change, those are the moments that you will experience the greatest resistance. It is when the grip gets as tight as it can get before having to let go, right? And we will be calling on movement leaders, culture bearers, change makers to continuously rise and rise again as we encounter that slope. And because of that, and in doing that, we have to acknowledge and be ready to take care of them. That we have a responsibility to stand up to take care of folks, that our maximum performance requires our maximum care. And that's just not about physical care. That's mental care, emotional care, spiritual care, and even spatial care, how we create spaces together with each other and how those spaces foster the unleashing of the best in us, right? I've always believed, and I believe it more than now, is a heightened sensitivity to it, that there's a relationship between our ability to give and our ability to receive. That if I allow myself to be worn and distracted in such a way that I can only give you 65% of me, then you can bet that I can only receive 65% of what you try to give to me in exchange. And if you think about that, 65% of what I could give that could potentially be 100%, leaves 35% on the table. And if in you giving me, trying to give to me 100%, if I can only receive 65%, that's another 35%. That's 70% of potential loss in that exchange. And so we have to take care of ourselves in this. And Root is that platform that we've embraced to deliver on that commitment. And that commitment we see at the individual level, we see it at the organizational level, we see it at the community level, and we see it at the narrative level. We know that narratives are social constructs, that they can be authored and reauthored along the way, as long as we commit to it and have a better and a higher vision. In closing, I'll say these things. we've always been rooted in community, not just engaged, but out in community doing the work. And in that, we've developed some strong relationships with many of the folks. I got a chance to peek at some of the folks who are on the Zoom. Many of you, we've had the pleasure and the honor of working alongside you over time and developing deep, lasting relationships that allow us to be ready and resilient for the moment that we're in. And not only to respond to the moment, but to move with it, shape it, and I would even say the ability and the readiness to meet the future halfway as a result of the relationships that we've been in with you. And we know that this fight for freedom and liberation won't happen overnight. That is a generational and intergenerational call. But we are here for the long haul, for all the complexity, the joy, and the beautiful struggle of building more and just and abundant futures alongside you. And so what I would say is this to you. Please take time to pause, to take care of yourself, to ask for help from each other, to support each other, whether it's through words or resources, because rest is not an act of leisure. Rest is an act of responsibility and accountability in this work. So take care of yourselves. We need you and your brilliance and your wisdom more than ever before. And I just say to you that I look forward to seeing you along the way. I'll be there by your side. Sometimes when you feel that tap on your shoulder, it will be me encouraging you to hold the course. So thanks for being with us this morning, for celebrating with us 20 years of work. We know that we won't get another 20 or whatever it is. I was going to say 2030, but I don't know if I'll be around that long. But we know that this work will not happen without you. Nobody, it was said, Sukjin said it earlier, nobody does it alone. No matter how brilliant you are, how bright you are, how strong you are, nobody, absolutely nobody does it alone. So see you along the way. Thanks. I'll give it back to you, Susie. And thanks to the team, the Root team, and thanks to the panel that's showing up for us today.
Thank you so much, Rapa. If you all, I know we're on Zoom, but if you feel called to unmute and just give Rapa a little round of applause or
Yes.
reactions in the chat. Woo, thank you. It's always such a pleasure to hear from you, Rapa. So thank you for being with us today and along the journey, right? Yeah, we cannot do this work in isolation. I'm going to keep us moving. So what we have planned next is to get to know who's on this call. So we have a few polls that we will populate, and we would love to know from folks, where are you coming from? Are you coming from the Twin Cities area, suburbs, greater Minnesota, or are you from out of state or maybe even international? Tell us where you're coming from. So you should see the poll pop up on your screen now. If you're able and willing, just respond to it. I think you can respond. You should be able to click on your response. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that, or a few seconds, shouldn't take too long. Okay, so we're seeing majority of folks coming or calling in from the Twin Cities. A few from greater Minnesota, that's great to hear. We love our greater Minnesota community. Okay, I'm seeing in the chat someone said, oh, hi, Jared. It didn't pop up. We'll see if we can get someone to help you there. A few from out of state. Whoa, thank you for being here. For those who are out of state or chose other, I would love to hear where you're calling from. Feel free to unmute or put that in the chat. Minneapolis, Colorado, welcome. Oh, Mexico, welcome. Thank you for being here. In Texas, Missouri, thank you. Wow, how amazing. Thank y'all for being here, for making that time. Just moved back from Rochester, New York. Welcome back. Welcome back to the very cold fall we're having here. Great, thank you. And then I see some of you have already answered the other questions on the poll. Thank you for doing so. If you haven't, take a second or two. We love to know where people work and how we are all connected. So I see that most of the people on the call here are coming from a nonprofit or philanthropy field. That's amazing. Thank you for being here. We have a few from government, private sectors, or other. I think it's great to see all the different fields that we're working in because one, again, we can't do this work alone, and it's not the responsibility of just one work field to invest in rest and practice rest, right? It is all of our responsibility. So it's great to see that we have some representation of different work sectors on this call and really interested in investing in this rest movement. And then the third question, if you haven't already answered, how well do you know Nexus? I know some of you from this call I have interacted with either from root programming or Nexus programming, but some of you are very new to me. So I'm curious to know how did you hear about Nexus? What brought you here? What were the connections? And it looks like most people have answered. So a few folks said, this is my first Nexus event. About 12% of y'all, this is your first time here with us. Thank you. Welcome. I hope you stay till the end. Again, there will be that raffle. Some folks said not very well, but maybe you've heard of us here and there. About 24% said very familiar with Nexus's work. About 21% said that you were a former or are a current program participant in Nexus's programs or events. Yeah, Nexus has a lot of different programs that community can be part of. So I'm so happy that you all are here today. I've known Nexus for a very long time. They're family, about 18% of you. Well, welcome back. Welcome, family. I hope by the end of this call, we can all say that we're family. Okay. Let me just check the chat. On LinkedIn. Wow, thank you. I'm trying to see Sukjin. I'm looking for your square.
Me here.
Awesome. Thank you. I can pass it over to you. I think one of our panelists said that they were running a little late, so I'm not sure if she's here. Is Felicia here?
Let me quickly look. No, I think she's still running. Yeah, she had an emergency command. I think
Okay.
if she is still running, maybe as we get started, the questions we could just pull her in graciously. I mean, I still have long bios of our esteemed panel to read anyway,
Yay.
so
Okay, great.
gonna
Let's
hype them up first.
beautiful.
I
Yay.
love that. Well, it's the moment you all are waiting for, which is to hear from our esteemed panel. So as I mentioned earlier, we're just so excited to have some of our dearest, deepest collaborators for this panel, because when we think about, having this conversation, right? As I mentioned earlier, we do this work in deep partnership. We're like, well, who do we want in the room to talk about these things? Because sure, we at Root could tell you what we see, and we try our best to share out what we learn at the events and programming that we do. But we know that the folks that we work with see a lot in their respective work as well. And so we're like, you know what? Let's have a fun session where you all can hear from them, because they have just such deep wisdom. That's why we work with them. That's why we partner with them and have such good fun together in these relationships that we have. Hence these three persons. And honestly, we have like so many amazing collaborators out there. If it were up to us, it's gonna be a rest party, not just a rest panel. So just putting it out there for you all to know. But today the panel that we have are these three amazing human beings that are doing so much out there. If you all have not interacted with them, out there, I highly encourage that this is not the last time you speak or hear or work with them. So that's my invitation that I put up front. How this panel will work is that we will have the conversation. Susie and I will moderate, and then we will have time for Q&A. So one thing that I want you to get familiar with is that Zoom has this Q&A button that you'll see. It's like a little chat shape icon with question mark on it. That's where I want you to put your questions. We will look at the questions at the end after Susie and I are done asking the couple of questions that we have, and then we'll pick from that and ask our panelists on your behalf. So feel free to add that into that box, and we'll get to them. So that's how this is going to work. And with that, I'm going to introduce our three amazing panelists. So let me get to their bios. All right. So we have Camille Cyprian is a community-rooted entrepreneur, healing justice practitioner, and an organizational leader with over a decade of experience supporting social change. As chief network weaver at Rooted to Last and co-founder of multiple mission-driven ventures, their calling is to curate and cultivate spaces that center collective healing, cultural and intergenerational connection and liberation. Currently pursuing a doctorate in organizational development, Camille applies holistic frameworks to build more equitable institutions and communities. Her vocation is expanding access to immersive, healing-centered experiences and deepening transformative impact in St. Paul, across the state, and beyond. I really do think that that's how we experience Camille, that space building, that immersive healing, like that's Camille to the core. So excited to have Camille with us today. Dora Palma, in her bio, describes herself as a cisgender woman of color, an immigrant, wife, mother, daughter, and a transgenerational trauma survivor turned psychotherapist. As an immigrant and woman of color, I draw on my own experiences and training to deliver a holistic, culturally sensitive approach. Furthermore, I incorporate a liberatory and decolonial framework into my healing practice. I understand oppressive systems and their contribution to the current and historical trauma many communities have endured due to social, cultural, and political inequalities. I know a lot of our fellows that have worked with Dora absolutely adores her and just couldn't get enough of Dora. So that is very, very truly felt. And Felicia, Dr. Felicia Washington C. is a licensed independent clinical social worker, traumatologist, and educator with over 20 years of experience providing trauma-informed care to survivors of sexual and physical violence. An integrative healer and organizational well-being consultant, Dr. C combines mindfulness-based practice, intercultural theory, and social justice frameworks to support individuals, families, and institutions in creating conditions for deep healing and systemic change. She maintains a private psychotherapy practice in South Minneapolis, leads healing circles, and consults with organizations across the Twin Cities on DEI and collective wellness. A practicing Buddhist for over 14 years, Dr. C is a member of Clouds in Water Zen Center, where she co facilitates the BIPOC sitting group and brings a contemplative practice into every dimension of her personal and professional life. And that presence is truly felt when she walks into a room. Um, and with that, is Felicia here yet before I jump into this panel?
I don't think so.
All right.
I think we can welcome her once she hops on.
Perfect. I guess it is the four of us for now. And yeah, let's get started and we will fold Felicia in lovingly into our conversation when she comes in. So yeah.
Thanks. Well, I have the honor of asking the first question. And I want to start by saying, we're talking about rest as resistance, right? Rest as a tool of resistance. But I think what we really want to be mindful of is it can be very easy to jump into action when there's so much happening around us, right? Whether that be, stress from trying to help community or external factors outside of our control, current political environment. We have these tools because oftentimes because we've had to find tools to survive in the world, right? So it can be easy to jump in and say, okay, this is how I'm going to fight against these oppressive systems. But what we really wanted to do is take a moment to step back and remember why it is that we're doing what we do and who it is for. So with that, I want to ask the first question. What is your earliest memory of rest? What does that recall for you? And think about your senses, right? When you're thinking about your earliest memory, is that what comes up? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? Is there a specific sound? Was there a specific taste that reminds you of this memory? Who was around you? Or what place were you in? So I think we'll have that first question. I can put it in the chat for you all, but we'll start there. And whoever wants to jump in, go ahead.
No, peace, everybody. I guess I'll hop in and first just want to express gratitude to Nexus and the Root team and everyone for the invitation. My earliest memory of rest has to do with being cared for when I was younger by my grandmother. And I think that was my first conscious understanding of what rest was just spending time with her. And specifically, my grandmother has this porch and she has a rocking chair. And I remember spending summers with her, specifically when I was younger. And throughout the day, she would sit in her rocking chair on the porch and she would close her eyes and she'd say, I'm not asleep, I'm just resting my eyes. I mean, she would do that throughout from my earliest from the earliest memory of her, even till now. And she's 94, she's still with us. And she probably takes more naps than resting of her eyes at this stage in her life, but well deserved, of course. But just seeing my grandmother and spending time with my grandmother and having her consistently and intentionally, sit in her rocker and close her eyes and say, I'm just resting my eyes. And You know, being a young person, kind of mimicking her, you know, sitting on the floor next to her or sitting in the chair next to her and kind of closing my eyes, but keeping one open, like peeking to see, you know, are we still resting our eyes? Like what's happening? So, I, you know, being in her presence, in her house, you know, all of the sights and the smells and all of the senses of kind of being at grandma's house, you know. So smelling tea, she wasn't much of a coffee drinker, but smelling tea or smelling food, that's the way that kind of she showed her care and took care of people. Sitting on the floor next to her, or rocker, sitting or laying on the couch. She had windows open, so hearing nature, as well as gospel music in the background. Those are the things that remind me of those earliest moments, and what comes up for me when I go back and call back into that earliest memory of rest. Thanks for this question. It was
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Felicia. How you doing?
Hey, I am so happy to be here. Yes.
Hey, we're happy to have you with us.
Yeah, I am thinking about this question. And you know, I don't have early members of rest. So I assume that there is this in the way I think about rest is that there's a certain intentionality about it. There's a certain letting go about it. And unfortunately, my earliest examples, people took breaks. People might have slowed down a little bit, but I don't have early examples of actual rest. My people didn't rest. Uh, they maybe they rested their eyes, and that can be an intentional kind of thing. I love that imagery. I love that that, you know, I'm just resting my eyes. But there's also in that, built right into that, but not too long. You know, I can't let my body fully let go. Just my eyes get to rest. And those are my examples. Those are my examples. And so I have to, my experience of rest came in 2020 when the pandemic happened. I think that's the first time I really rested. And it was during that time that I developed a practice, and I'm privileged to be able to do this. I take the month of August off every year. I don't work. And I started that during the pandemic time, or maybe just before, leading up to the pandemic, is when I decided I'm just taking a month and I'm going to do nothing much. Just whatever I wake up feeling for the day. And I'm going to give myself that. And maybe I'll do a little traveling. And I've been doing that for, maybe somewhere between 5 and 7 years now. And that has been life changing. That is my first experience, my earliest memory of rest. Is the pandemic. Isn't that a horrible connection a linkage to have to make? But that's the truth. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like what I'm hearing from both of you is, as you're sharing stories, is the importance of rest being somatic, right? Being in your body, whether that be you're closing your eyes or sitting on the ground, or being very planful and saying and intentional and saying, I'm taking that month off. I'm going to wake up when I want to, but really listening and being in tune with your body. Something that I keep hearing from both of you and from community. Dora, would love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I want also to express my gratitude to Ruth and for having me here to share my story. So I really appreciate, and for the questions. It really inspired me. It really pushed me to rest in a way to come, to sit, and to connect with these questions. So I appreciate that. So in regard of the first question, one of my earliest memory of rest comes from my young adulthood in Peru. I remember I was in my last year of college, doing my internship, studying full time. You know, just a background, that college was run by nuns. So exhaustion and hard work were praised by them. I didn't realize I was in survival mode and just moving from one task to another, constantly doing, and just doing and disconnected. I remember one weekend my godparents came to visit and noticed how tired and worn out and disconnected I was. So they invited me to stay with them during my summer break. In their home, they used to have a tiny but beautiful house in the countryside of Lima. And I remember like it was yesterday, like waking up the first day and just, hearing the birds and the fresh air and the silent there. It was the birds, but it was silent, no other like electronicals, no music, no like that kind of stuff. So, and I remember that she was sitting in the porch. It was a sunny day, and she was peeling potatoes, and she just there was no hurry, no urgency, just her, humming and the smell of the soil and the food and the quiet. I think for me it was the first time in a while, like I feel safe, I feel unhurried and connected. So going back now to that magical moment with my grandmother, remind me that rest has always existed, and through connection, through slowness, and tending what really matters for us. So I was talking with Susie yesterday, how touching was for me to remember, to like for this question, right? Like going back and remember my godparents. I say like, if they were right now with me, to have the chance to tell how much they impact in my life. I'm so grateful for their life and for past me, that that wisdom, that we need to rest. And rest is not doing nothing. It's just to be there and to be present and to be connected. So that is my experience.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I love that the stillness and connection to soil and to earth, right? Being part of your earliest memory alongside your godparents, being connected to many people can also be how we rest. Yeah, thank you. So Jin, I'll pass it to you to ask the next question.
Yeah, I am just really struck that people, and it makes sense, right? Like our peoples mirror that for us. I am also really struck that in all three of your examples, that noticing of what's the earliest memory came at different times. Like Camille, yours went way back. Dora, yours was like around college time, and Felicia, yours is a lot more recent. And I think that's beautiful because for all of us, and I mean, it's even in the name of our work, it's like reclaiming our own time, and that reclaiming can happen anytime, right? Might be way back, might be, like more recent. And I hope that encourages all of our listeners today to think about that. It's never too late to start. If any one of us are feeling that sense of like, but I don't remember a memory, it's never too late. It's okay. If this panelist conversation is making you think about rest for the first time, great. This is probably the place to start. That's awesome. And this next question I have for you is about that inspiration to rest. You all have brought up some people, that are near and dear to you. So when you think about that inspiration to rest, whether it's big capital I inspiration or small capital I inspiration, doesn't have to be, always the big splashy stuff, right? Um, who or what has been that thing for you? Because I know sometimes it's hard to reach for this thing called rest, right? Yeah, what's inspired you, or who's inspired you to rest?
Maybe I can answer that question. So for me, I think my godparents, especially my godmother, I think she has been a deep inspiration for me when it comes to rest. I think their home and way of life remind me that the rest is sacred. That slowing down is no laziness, but a return to balance, to return to our center. Uh, that the rest is a way to honor our life and ourselves, and to honor our ancestors too. And also for me, the Pachamama, because teach me that, the rims, the seasons, the way it blooms and bloom again, and remind me that nothing is like always is blooming. There is time for rest, even in nature, so that there is a wisdom in that pause. And also, I've been inspired by the teaching of BIPOC writers and community healers like Trisha Hersey, who remind us that rest is not a luxury, but somebody else said earlier, like to the portal, right, to our collective freedom, right, and also a portal to connect with our ancestors.
I want to follow up with that. Is right? I want to follow up with
Yes.
that. In terms of what inspires us, I didn't even know. I am a workaholic. I am a recovering workaholic. I really don't know nothing about rest. Remember, all of my examples were for people who literally worked their fingers to the bone. And so my first awarenesses around rest as like a thing was really also very recent. And Rest is Resistance. That book just opened my eyes to the power of white supremacy culture and productivity culture, grind culture, exploitation culture. That was my life. That was my story. And when I read that book, all of the things, all of the pieces just began to fall into place. And so now to me, rest is a political action. Rest for me now is a requirement. Rest now for me is my resistance against white supremacy culture and grind culture that is all about exploration. And to me, that realization, that connection is about honoring my ancestors. Y'all remember the movie The Help? I actually hated that movie. It was nice. It was a feel-good movie, but that was not about the help. It was a white woman's coming of age story, and that's really great. Good for her. But my people were the help. Both of my grandmothers worked as domestic laborers for white women, and that is how they took care of their families. And you get a sense of that in the movie of The Help. But and you get a glimmer of it as we are weaving through how the women, the maids, the caregivers supported this white girl's coming of age. Isn't that interesting? And we get a sense of that, but they weren't really telling the story of my grandmothers. They literally worked. They went and they cared for white families, and then they came home and they cared for their families too. That's what they did. And they worked all the time. They worked in the grind so that one day I could sit here and be Dr. Felicia Washington Sy. Unimaginable for them. And yet those women laid the foundation through their labor, and they never rested. They never rested. And that was part of the story. So now I reclaim that. I take that back. I am taking a nap for my ancestors. I am taking a nap for all the women that worked their fingers to the bone so that their families could have something. That is my resistance. That is my military. That is my militant action. Thank you.
Whew, that's bringing up so much. That's bringing up so much. Because as I was sitting with this question, like to some of the points you're making, Dr. C, like, yeah, the inspiration comes from people who I know, my own elders and ancestors, but also like just random people who tell me stories about how they didn't make time to rest, or they didn't feel like they could rest. They didn't use their PTO. They saved all their, all their travels and all their stuff for kind of, post work or retirement. And then they didn't have the health or the strength to actually do the things that they wanted to do that would feel restful for them. And so for me, the inspiration, maybe not the capital I as in like the hopeful sense of inspiration, but in the lessons learned from elders and ancestors of like what happens when you don't. What happens when you don't? And whether that was something that was available and accessible to them or not, to your point of reclamation, and being in a practice of rest, that the act is resistance, that it is reclamation, and it's that invitation of and actually making and taking of space that allows you to go a little bit deeper or stay in it a little bit longer. But I'm struck by your words because that rings true and resonates with me. It's the inspiration of folks who are like, don't wait. Don't wait till you think you have time. Don't wait till you think you've done enough to deserve it. Don't consider it as something that you have to earn. Take the PTO now, take the vacations now. Do what you need to do what your body needs to do in order to show up as the best human being, and to do the important work that you need to do. Like, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. And it's also an act of resistance. But if we're going to be workers for liberation, if we're going to be active in our change, like, we have to be able to stay in it too. And part of that is realizing that rest is a part of that work.
That's you three. This is why I won. Like when Susie and I were like, who do we want to put in a room? You three. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like so much of what you all name. Yeah, because like, when we are able to start doing some of this reclaiming, we are also resting for those who didn't get a chance, and hopefully by modeling it for each other, because it's not like it's easy either, right? As we're doing this reclaiming, that we're hopefully helping each other, like lean more into these practices too, and be like, hey, let's stay into it, because we're changing things that have been, hard for the longest time. Like I'm hearing in it too that it takes a while to shift these practices. So I think that kind of gets to this next question that you're about to ask, Susie. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I got a kind of a question and answer. So, like, my first memory of rest was, I want to say, in school at band. So I started playing the trumpet at 11. By the time I was 13, they had me playing in the high school band. And for me, that was my rest, was playing the trumpet in concert or playing for the solos for the football or the basketball teams. But because I got away from the chaos and all the distractions at home, I had so much stuff going at home, that was my release and my rest where I felt at peace when I could go and play the trumpet like a hobby. So I don't know if they would consider that as rest or just an escape.
I mean, Gerard, if that gives you a sense of calm and rest, I think that's restful. That's being a state of flow and rest. Like, I'm curious to hear what the rest of the panelists thinks before we jump into our next question, like briefly, if anyone has a quick comment for that.
I mean, I think that rest looks different for everybody. And that it's about finding the rest that works for you, right? That makes you feel rejuvenated, that makes you feel recentered. And if that is what it is, then nobody can tell you that it's not restful, because it's your practice of rest. And so I would say that rest can look and mean differently, but if it's something that works for you and makes you feel regulated and rejuvenated,
I want to piggyback off of that. And is it, I love your question. Is that rest or is it escape? And I wonder if we don't judge. I wonder if we don't trust. Maybe the best that we have at any given time, maybe we just need to escape. And maybe rest and escape don't have to be different. Maybe we don't have to judge one or the other. Maybe sometimes we just need to escape. Maybe that's good enough. Maybe there's no judgment in that. Maybe you get to rest by escaping. And maybe that can be okay. And if you have a balanced life, then that's my next question. Do you have a balanced life? Because it's okay. It's all right. Take the judgment out of it. And then either one is just fine. One is the other, and it's okay.
I do now because I'm out of that situation as an adult. But at the time, I didn't really have an escape because a lot of stuff fell kind of on my shoulders at that point in time, growing up in that environment. So once I got older, I was able to get away and create my own environment and ecosystem that helped me versus being in that same environment ecosystem that was kind of toxic in a way at that point.
Yeah. I think it's like one of those things where over time we're just learning about ourselves and what works for us, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think this, unless Dora, you wanted to share something. Okay. I think this brings us to our next, it's a great transition to our next question, which is, excuse me. What is a common misconception about rest in communities of color that you want to change? What is a narrative that does not serve us in reclaiming our own time? And I love, Camille, what you had shared earlier about, well, what happens when we don't rest? You know, changing the question and in that way, right? So again, any one of you who wants to jump in. But yeah, what is that common misconception about rest, and what narrative is it that we want to change?
I think for me, it is the biggest one has already been mentioned, that rest has to be earned, that you have to earn it, you have to be worthy of it, that you have to be in that kind of frame of mind. And it's to counteract this idea that I think that in my family, and I think in my community, I mean Black community, there is a unspoken value. And it's an important unspoken value because it freed a people. But yet there's a miss, and I'm going to tell you what I think it is. And that is that if you are not bleeding from the knuckles, you are not working hard enough. Like you cannot, like life is a grind. Everything like you have to suffer, you have to make it work, you have to, like, that life is supposed to be a little painful. You got to work harder, you got to bleed a little bit in order for it to be worthwhile. If you got extra time, then you ain't working hard enough, this kind of thing. And I certainly was raised like that, and I'm looking at the results of that. And I'm looking at two aging parents who are at the end stages of their life, and what that mentality has led for the way that they're going to go from this life to the next. They have chronic health issues, they have diabetes, and they grinded it out. They grinded it out, and it shows up in their body. It shows up as they age. It shows up in how they will pass. The end outcome of that is a health disparity. And if I could change one thing, is that life is meant to be this balanced mix. We both suffer and we have to have great joy. And it's this balance of the ups and downs, of the difficult moments. There is struggle in life. But if all you have at the end of the day is a struggle, then you have missed something. You have missed something. And that is joy and peace. And it's the only kind of joy and peace that comes with rest. I have learned that, and I try to live it in a really intentional way. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Dora.
So in my community, one common misconception is that rest is selfish or unproductive. That is, you are not constantly working, you are wasting time, that you are lazy, that you don't have vision, so we often hear phrases like, oh, Latinos are such a hard worker, as if it were the highest compliment. I used to take pride of that too. Because it meant others noticed, my dedication, my long hours of work, my skip meals, my sacrifices. And but now I see how that price carry an expectation that we must constantly prove our worth through exhaustion. So I feel that this narrative does not serve us. Exhaustion is not our heritage. My ancestors did not survive, so I can just could live disconnected from my body and joy. I think something that we need to learn is like saying no when we need to, like setting boundaries and remembering that being well is more revolutionary than being overworked and tired. Yeah, so that's all that I want to share for this question.
Yeah, all of what has been shared is really resonating with me. I guess the only thing that I would add is that judgment piece and that guilt piece of like and something that I even struggle with as someone who tries to be a deep practitioner of this concept of rest, is the guilt sometimes that comes with taking that space, even if it's a lunch break, sometimes I'm like, dang, like, there's some work that I could be doing. I got so much on my plate. There's stuff on my to-do list. Like, should I even be taking this lunch break? And the work, my work, over the past several months actually has been to try and release that those feelings of guilt, and especially as it relates to doing the things that I need to be a functional human being, right? I've got to nourish my body. I shouldn't feel guilty about taking time and space to do that. I've got to drink my water. I shouldn't feel guilty about taking the time and space to do that. I should get sunlight and fresh air and be outside and touch the dirt, and I shouldn't feel guilty about taking the time and space to do that. I need a good night's sleep. Whatever that means for you. It's not about the length of time. It's like what your body needs, but releasing the guilt that sometimes comes with these narratives and misconceptions around productivity and not working hard enough and having to earn rest is I guess a narrative that I would like for us to challenge, that I don't think really serves us as we think about reclaiming our own time and this practice of rest. Like, no, this is what we need in order for the physiological bodies to function. Never mind, our creativity and our connection and our innovation and like all of those things that get supported when we actually are in that space. But just to be a functioning human being, if we can collectively, and I'm doing this work too, kind of release those narratives and those feelings of guilt and shame around taking the time and space to do those things, I think would really serve us well.
Yes, 100% to everything that's being shared, right? I love what you had said, Dora, and correct me if I misheard, but you said something like the expectation of working hard should not be our inheritance. And that like blew my mind. I was like, yeah, I don't want to inherit that anymore. I want to be the difference. I want to break that generational cycle, right? And then hearing the three of you just talk about like we don't want to take we don't claim this narrative anymore. We are not holding it. We're not going to pass it on. I think takes a lot of courage. And I'm just constantly reminded of like, yeah, rest is work. Even though it sounds so like, what are you talking about? But like, yeah, rest is work. It takes work to change these narratives. It takes work to continue to like send yourselves affirmation, right? I'm gonna take this break. I'm gonna go for that walk. I'm gonna say not right now to my to-do list and decide to take a nap. Like, yeah, that takes work. So I really appreciate what you all have to say and the dreams that you have for yourselves and for community. It's huge. Yeah, so Jin, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of really gorgeous reflections in chat. If folks have just been so mesmerized by this conversation, I do encourage folks to also look at the chat. There were comments like how I dislike when resting is looked at as laziness. I know that's another narrative that we have heard coming up a lot in conversations from community as well. How it's like that perception, right? It's like, so that we get so fearful. It's like, no, I don't want to rest because I don't want to be perceived as lazy. And I think that threads a lot to that comment earlier that you all have brought up around like productivity and labor and worthiness that we all have been touching on as well. And then the whole piece around like I dislike with careful consideration is viewed as procrastination. Same comment from Charlotte as well. And yeah, because sometimes, when we want to like take our time, make sure we consider all the things, like same thing as well. People view that as like you're taking too long, too slow. And that could be viewed as like, oh, you're just too much. Evan has this gorgeous comment about how resting in community, in communal events, that is also a form of resting for some folks. And Asa was commenting about like, a space where they also have experienced that as well. And I'm sure all of us have variations of that when we felt a sense of restfulness because we could just be with our people. A nap is great, and also the time that we don't have to hold our breaths, right? Because we have to be someone else or be a person that we don't that we're not. It's also restful. So I thought those were just good things to lift up. And Rosawa offered some really beautiful reflections around the cycles of struggle that we're caught in as well. That we, like grieving is a natural process of that. So this next question that I have for us is really thinking about like, then what do we do as we shift, this work? So, obviously the three of you are doing amazing work, and we have just such joy at Root to be in partnership with you all. And you all in your respective spaces are doing amazing things as well. And the folks here got to hear about it a little bit in your bios when I read it earlier. So my question for you is, what do you need those who are in positions of power and resource to hear? How can they be part of the change that is necessary to empower all of us to reclaim our own time?
I
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, it's in chat. So it's what do you need those who are in positions of power or resource to hear? And how can they be a part of the change that is necessary to empower all of us to reclaim our own time?
I think the things that are coming up for me for that question is that regardless of your position or positionality or title, right? You need rest too. You all as leaders need it too. And as you're able to direct and influence either the resources or parts of the organization that really invest in the people that are part of the organization or the work that you're doing, because people lead the product, people lead the programs, right? People leads the profit. And so regardless of what you're driving toward, if you have people who are well, who are rested, who are cared for, the results are brilliant. They're dynamic. They're amazing. And like history shows us this over and over again. And we have examples of this over and over again. And so, yeah, like that's what's coming up for me. It's like, we all need this. It's agnostic of your position or the power that you might wield or hold or the resources that you might have, even though that impacts your accessibility. But the fact of the matter is that all people have to have some sort of access to rest, and to not neglect yourself in that, but also to use your influence and your power to invest in that for your people and the people around you.
Camila, I really appreciate what you say about like this invest. Something that also it really resonate with me. Like there is invest in the people, so they can, as you said, can can rest, can be the best version of themselves, and also kind of remind, them that rest is not a privilege. It's not a favor to us. It's a human right, right? And if they want to support, communities of color, so create conditions where people can rest without fear, that they will let them go, or fair pay, and respect also boundaries for people who for people who knows to say, I need to clock out. I'm not taking work from to home, and I think true empowerment means making rest possible for everyone, not just for a few people,
So I want to tell people or let people know, similar to what people have said already, that the studies show that people are more productive when they have flexibility and when they have rest in their jobs. That actually produces more productive people. That's what the studies show. And yet, since the pandemic, we've seen a huge turn of people taking back flexible work hours, requiring people to be back into the workplace, calling workers back, particularly on state and federal levels. There are a number of reasons for that, including once people had that flexibility, right now, all those office buildings real estate was starting to tank. And so I think that that's why Governor Walz called employees and workers back to the office. And it became an economic thing. If people weren't showing up in those offices, there were coffee shops and restaurants and that weren't getting those workers, right? So that there are some real consequences. But just the same, it's flexibility and rest that allow people to be productive. And so I want to say, don't lose that. Keep giving people and keep funding opportunities for rest and flexibility. Put your resources there, and people will actually be more productive when we give space and time for that. And resources. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, because I think that really naming, and if leaders truly understand that they have to be responsible with the power that they have, and they also have to be honest and transparent with that as well, and that rest is that right for everyone. It's not just for the privileged few, to the point that you all are bringing up, that it's something that everyone needs access to. It's not just like hoarding, right? And the more that they could make sure that with the positionality that they have, that they make it accessible for as many of us as possible within their reach, that's truly necessary. And I think that's really important. um, I want to be mindful that we are approaching time. Oh, Camille, I see that you have.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna add, one more thing in that, particularly in thinking about those that are in positions of leadership within institutions and systems, recognizing that is also resistance as well, because the systems and the institutions are often developed in an exploitative way. And so being a leader and leveraging your power and influence for rest and towards rest is also an act of resistance, because the systems that often we're working in, or the structures that we're often working in, are not designed or set up for us to be considering the humanity or the people either. And so I just want to name that that's a tension as well, and that it's a stance as a leader to be able to take that.
Absolutely.
And we're
Anything we can push.
Yeah.
Yes, Felicia, I love it. Jump in.
I just last thing I want to add about this, what should our leaders know? And that is not to conflate performance and productivity. That sometimes think that like at the end of the day is that yes, it's work. It is work. It is a employment. It is a job. And if you're fortunate, it's a passion. But your performance and your productivity, like if there's a performance issue, that's another thing. And so, but people can be more productive with the rest. And so, this idea that we have to control or micromanage, otherwise people won't perform. And sometimes there are performance issues, but let's separate those out and deal with one and the other. That when people have rest, they are more productive and will improve their performance. Some people, and there is a caution, like I've been on the hiring side, I've been the employer, I've been the one that has to check and correct, but don't conflate the issues. Deal with the performance issue, and that is separate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. Well, I want to make sure we have time for questions from the audience as well. So I saw that we have one already in the Q&A. That's great. For the rest of you, if you have questions, great time to start, adding them to the Q&A. So I am going to go ahead and ask the first one. So we have this question from Hetty. How have our ancestors rested and how can we learn from them? And so Hetty has this beautiful example from her indigenous ancestors, the Orang Asli, the first people of the forest, lakes, rivers, and the Orang Laut, the people of the sea. Imagine resting on a mountainside after gathering food or wood for fires and looking over the landscape, or sitting a while by the ocean and looking at the infinity of the horizon. And Hetty said that she had the privilege of doing that as a child. So yeah, just wondering if you all have any either stories of your ancestors or any maybe other stories that you've encountered around resting from an ancestral perspective.
Wow.
Okay, go ahead.
Good question. When I think about them, they rest through, also in community, they come together. Food was still, sometimes the main point for us to rest, to come together, to hold and create safe space. And through music, in Peru we have a different type of musics, and that maybe sometimes the lyrics have a message, that when I sing that song, I remember that also my grandmother sing the same song, and a way to connect with her and to rest, for her too. And yeah, that is so far what it comes to my heart right now.
I love that, Dora. How music and other forms of like our senses, right? can be ways that we rested. Yeah, I'm also thinking about how music doesn't always require language, right? And it is very a physical activity as well as spiritual. So I love that. Camille and Dr. Felicia, if you all have responses, feel free to chime in. I also want to expand and invite you all to think as a future ancestor, as we all will be, if that feels, or if you feel called to respond to it. But we also have more questions that we can go to if not.
I think rest is embedded within our indigenous cultures. And if we can tap into that and give our descendants that value, that beauty of rest within them in many indigenous cultures that are within every person, maybe that's a good journey to take.
We have to start a new culture of rest that, and I alluded to in my story that I have to learn to rest for the ancestors, that I believe that in epigenetics, and I believe that the spirit of the grandfathers are passed down through the children. And whatever is in our genes, whatever is in the collective unconscious is a part of us. And it is up to us for who don't have a story or a history or an ancestral pathway to rest, or it's not known to us, it's been lost down through the ages, is that we really have to begin to create our new patterns, our new routines, our new rituals. Here's the word that's being overused these days, but important: healing. And so when I heal myself and I heal my relationship to rest, I am actually healing my bloodline. I am actually healing for the generations. I am actually presencing and giving them peace. I believe my ancestors smile down on me, and we are in gratitude with each other, healing the bloodline. Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Thank you. The visual of healing our bloodline. Wow, that's so powerful, right? So thank you for those words. We do have a few more questions people have populated in the Q&A chat. So this one is from Roxana, who asks, I have feelings about rest during a moment of an active genocide that we're all witnessing. Would love to hear how you grapple with this in your political/heart/daily practices. What is rest without the liberation of all people?
I am right in here with this one. So here is that I get this all the time as a psychotherapist. People right now, from the people who I am serving, who are activists, and they say, I cannot rest as long as what's happening in Gaza is happening. I cannot rest as long as our military is being turned and set out in our American cities. I cannot rest. I cannot. And I was like, no, 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 no. Your cup must be full. It's a little bit like put your oxygen mask on before you help another. And is that it is so important. It is so important to do this work from a grounded and resourced place, so that your cup is so full that you can take your restful abundance, it's spilling over, and then you offer it to the community. not trying to scrape out the last bits of what you have from a place of lack, scraping out, trying to do the next thing, trying to force the next issue, trying to heal no, no, because there is abundance, because joy. It's like if there is no peace, there can be no joy. No, it is our duty to be rested and to continue to find joy, to stave off despair. It is my political action to be well. And that means rest. So no, no, no. Once again, that speaks to I have to bleed from my fingertips in order for me to be working. I have to suffer in order to be down with the cause. I'm like, no, that just makes you tired and dead with diabetes and a heart attack and maybe a stroke. I'm telling you what that leads to, what that mentality leads to. So no, it is I'll say it again. It is my political action to be joyful. It is my political action to have rest. It is my political action to be so filled, so abundant that I can share my overflow for the cause. Yeah, that's what I say to that. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, I think what is being called of us in this moment and many moments like this throughout history is for us to be creating different ways of being and existing together. And in order for us to have our best access to our creativity, to our connection, to some of the things and the actual capacities for us to be changing and making change in a transformative way in this world are supported by our rest. And so very functionally, like at that physiological level, in order for us to do our best work in our in the work of justice and transformation, it requires us, like, this is a part of our work. We cannot necessarily see those two things as separate. And I think the other maybe question that I would offer is like, who does that serve and how? If we're not taking the rest that we need, who is that serving and how is it serving them? If that is the driver of our kind of working to the bone, right? How is that of service to the liberation that we seek? Would be a question that I will offer back.
Those are really powerful responses. Yeah, thank you. I will offer us one last question so that we'll have time for the giveaway. I think this last question actually pairs really well with the other one, because this one is more of a what do I then do given the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I would love, if possible, we hear from all three of you on what do we then do. So Ray offers this question here. In our current political climate, there have been a lot of calls for fast action, immediate responses, pivoting to meet the moment. And we know that in the urgency for speed and to meet the moment, to protect our communities, we often sacrifice rest. How do you put boundaries into place or say no in order to get that rest when community emergencies are continually arising?
It Here, they're coordinated and collaborative efforts that I want us to think about times of expansion and contraction. We cannot be expanded and going all the time full force. And yet, at the same time, remember both things happening at once, is that we have to respond in the moment. And so in collaborative teams that are really tight, and we experience expansion and contraction. Think about more like an amoeba, like in how it flows. And so that when there is an issue, is that we expand that, and the thing that has to be addressed is that we address it. So we expand to meet the moment, and then we make sure we come back and rest. And so the burden does not lay heavily on one person. While this person is resting, this person is rising to meet the moment, right? And then when that person has rested, then the next that they can come back and rise and meet the moment, and that other person has an opportunity to rest. So we are expanding and contraction to meet what needs to be met, and yet at the same time, we're not sacrificing our rest. We are so tight. We are so coordinated and working together. And this is a fantasy. I mean, I dream this future, right? I'm not saying this exists right now. It's the future that I dream. So that the efforts to mobilize are so well coordinated that we can do that we can expand and contract. I give you rest, and then I take rest, and that will flow ideally, seamlessly. I know we're not there. That's my vision, and that's my suggestion. Sorry about the dog.
We didn't hear the dog. I didn't hear the dog. Dora or Camille, what else can you add?
Like, I don't know if there's anything else to add, because Dr. Sy says what she said was so beautiful and wise, and that I really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know if I have something to add to that question.
Camille, what can we do to have boundaries and to say no when the urgency is there?
I think I dream similarly as you, Dr. Felicia. In regard to that, I guess just the thing that's coming up around boundaries, and the way that I think about boundaries in that regard boundaries are for me. They're not necessarily for anyone else. They're for myself. Like to what extent am I willing to go? What are the guardrails that I'm putting in place to care for myself? And how do I align with those? And I don't want to say enforce, but how do I protect those and hold those sacred? So everybody's capacity is different, and it's contextual, I think. And so understanding what that means for you and how you are able to show up in the best way that you're able to show up can mean one thing from one day to another. But having an awareness of that, I think kind of knowing when you've hit your limits, or when you're no longer pouring from that fullness of a cup, right? To recognize when there's something that you need to care for within yourself, and having that awareness of, like, this is how I show up, but these are the indicators. This is when I recognize that maybe I need to tend to myself in some way, and having awareness around that, and then being responsive to that and honoring that. That's what's in my spirit right now.
I love that. Those are great words to close us out. So once again, everyone, let's give a hand for our 3 panelists. This is amazing. Thank you, everyone. Time flies when you're having fun. I really appreciate this. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Now we are to our live prize drawing. So I believe, Susie, this is where I hand it to you.
Yes. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I love when we get to have conversations like these, because so much brilliance is shared. And I always, and I hope this is true for everyone, but walk away with another perspective and how I can even, or how I can change up some of my rest practices and remember why, right? I think remembering the why is always super important.
Thank you so much once again to our amazing panelists. Thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with us for 2 solid hours on rest, deep rest for resistance. Remember, you taking care of yourself means that we get to have a joyful and liberatory future. So remember, whatever that you could do to take care of yourself is for our collective abundance. So it's not selfish, it's for all of us. And thank you so much for the Nexus team for supporting us and having this amazing, joyful conversation. That was really, really beautiful. We will be sharing that donation link in chat, as mentioned earlier. If you've had a great time hanging out with us, we would really appreciate the support here at Nexus as part of our 20th anniversary celebration. And the last call to action is take care of yourselves. So drink some water, open your calendar, schedule some time for rest, 30 minutes, whatever it is that helps you to reclaim some of your own time, and some donations to Nexus Way. And yeah, with that, take care of yourselves today, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with Ruth. So much appreciated today.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.